Dead by Daylight's visuals and graphics have always been a controversial topic among the community. Some people prefer the old rundown atmosphere of the game, while others are more drawn to the current brighter and cleaner aesthetic. Throughout the years, DBD has gone through multiple engine changes, as well as several updates which have completely changed how the game looks overall. And so I wanted to commemorate all of these changes by making a two-part series where we take a look at the entire evolution of Dead by Daylight's visuals. This video is part 1, stay tuned for part 2 next week, and without any further ado, let's get right into it. Dead by Daylight was originally created with the idea of it being a scary, terrifying and deeply unsettling experience. Players were supposed to be frightened of their surroundings, as they were lost in this unfamiliar world, filled with lack of hope and despair. Even DBD's early prototypes, which were made in the Unity game engine, reflected the developer's original vision for the game. You can see Matthew Cote talking more in depth about this in the first entry from the Developer Diaries series.
A lot of games that talk about horror, that deal in that space, have, I don't know, indicators on screen or a meter to tell you how much your character is scared. We didn't want that, and we don't need that, because we don't care if your character is scared or not. What we want to know is if the player is scared.
And so all of the concept art, the character design and the environments were designed in order to directly reinforce this philosophy. Just take a look at the 3 original killers, for example. You have a creepy guy with a decrepit mask and spikes coming out of his back, an expressionless monster that can turn invisible, and a madman with a chainsaw, deformed face and ripped clothes. The maps in the game were also made with the intention of being unnerving. They really made you fear the environment around you. The Macmillan estate had its characteristic blue tint. Autohaven Wreckers had the foggy green lighting, which is thankfully still in the game to this day, and Coldwind Farm was a nighttime yellow. Personally, I think that this art direction was just the right one for the game. After all, it was the reason why the original maps looked so atmospheric and eerie. Now, I'm not going to pretend that the actual textures themselves were very high quality, because they really weren't, especially if you were playing on low graphics, but in my opinion the overall ambience and moodiness of the maps made up for that. Also, the fact that the textures were not as detailed as they are today meant that you didn't need as powerful of a device in order to run the game smoothly. Okay, so until now I have only been describing how things were in the past, so let's get into some of the changes relating to the game's visuals. The first update to Dead by Daylight's graphics came at the start of 2017, which was around 7 months after DBD was released. This was when the whole game was updated to a new version of the Unreal Engine, 4.13 to be exact, and apparently the developers faced a couple of problems while trying to implement this change.
Yeah, that all happened around the same time, December. We had a lot of challenges at that point because, well, we're using global illumination in the game. We updated our engine to 4.13 at the time, and we had to go back and tweak a lot of values that previously were working but needed a little bit more love. So,
despite all of these difficulties, however, I have to say that for me, this is the period of Dead by Daylight's history when the game looked the best. There's just something about the way how the lighting, the skybox and the fog interacted with the objects, which achieved a perfect balance between the different colors on each map. The updated Unreal Engine really managed to highlight and enhance each realm's visual qualities. The maps were neither too bright nor too dark, neither too vibrant nor too desaturated. Now, I know that some of you may not notice that big of a difference between this and the original aesthetics of the maps, but when you have looked at hundreds of hours of old DBD gameplay, you have no other choice but to simply adore the way how the maps looked during this specific period of the game's history. Unfortunately, however, this period only lasted for about a year and 10 months, because during the 2.4.0 patch that was introduced in December of 2018, Dead by Daylight's engine was updated yet again, this time to version 4.20. The developers once again had something to say about that. This time it was an official statement in the dev notes section of the patch notes for that update. The updated engine has added support for many new features, especially in audio and rendering, but also caused some incompatibility with existing features the game relied on. As such, we have rebalanced a few very important components of the game: lighting, fog, sound, and occlusion. There were a few minor adjustments that came with this. For instance, the distance at which the killer's red stain was visible to survivors was reduced, audio balancing and occlusion levels were adjusted, and support for volumetric fog was added. But by far the most impactful change from this patch was the fact that all of the lighting across every single map in the game was completely changed. Now, on some realms this didn't make that much of a difference. However, on others, like for example the Macmillan Estate, the vibe and atmosphere of the map was completely changed. It became fairly brighter and less vibrant. Another realm that was affected by this was Autohaven Wreckers, which in my humble opinion became a little bland and kind of flat almost. But things were subject to change yet again, as the developers were not only seemingly unhappy with how some of their maps looked, but they also saw these next-gen consoles coming up, and were like, what can we do about that? Alright, let's rework half of the content in the game. And this is how the so-called Realm Beyond update came to be. The Realm Beyond was basically a series of graphical updates as part of a massive rework of almost all assets, props, environments and characters found in Dead by Daylight. In order for this massive update to even be possible in the first place, the game's engine was updated yet again, jumping from Unreal Engine 4.22 to 4.25. And because of the sheer size of this ambitious update, the Realm Beyond was divided into several parts. The first one was released in patch 4.2.0 in September 2020. It included a complete graphical rework of two realms, Badham Preschool including all 5 Springwood maps, and the Amoka Estate, including Family Residence and the Sanctum of Wrath. The rocks, the trees, the walls and even the base ground tiles were remade from scratch, and the lighting of the maps was changed as well. Along with that, lockers, pallets, generators and chests received brand new 3D models, with the latter two props featuring new animations and sound effects when interacting with them. Fun fact, the original chest opening animation would later get reused for the rummaging interaction. One mid-chapter patch later and the second part of the Realm Beyond update was implemented, which featured a visual overhaul of the entire Macmillan Estate, going from the well-known light blue tint to a much more desaturated greyish color. There were more details added to the different structures, and the textures themselves became more higher resolution. However, the maps began looking a lot cleaner, more polished and less run down than how they used to be. The earlier jagged edges were replaced with straighter and smoother geometry. There were also a few more minor changes, like for example new on-screen blood splatters, new footstep effects, and updated VFX for the 3 original killers. And I guess that was it. This was part 1 of the evolution of DBD's graphics. Stay tuned for next week when I will release part 2, where we take a look at the rest of the Realm Beyond updates and talk a little bit more about character design. I hope you found this video interesting. If you did, then make sure to consider liking it and subscribing. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!